Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if I will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down.
All right, welcome to another episode of Successfully Chaotic. I am your host, Maria Daniels, and today I have the lovely Amanda May. We actually met, and I'm going to use quotation marks here, on Instagram, because basically I seen some videos that she was posting. I really resonated with them, and I'm like, you have got to come on the show. I really want to hear from you. I know my listeners are going to want to hear from you, and I'm going to let you jump in real quick and just kind of introduce yourself before we get, chatting, because I know based on our previous conversations offline, that can go on for a while.
Story of my life. I love that intro, by the way. I was
Thank you.
I love the intro. I loved it. Yeah, I love how we do meet, right? We do meet on Instagram. We do meet online. Even like when I do Zooms, I'm like, I can't wait to see you. So yeah, my name is Amanda May. I am a spiritual mentor, a higher self embodiment guide. I'm the founder and creator of the Manifesting Miracle Worker community. And I have been on an entrepreneurial journey for about 4 years, but the last year alone has really been, it's been a blow up season. I'm just living in gratitude, and it's like everything I have been wanting and dreaming about for so long is finally here, and it's been a beautiful ride. It's been a ride, though. I think it's going to always be a ride. I don't think the ride really ends.
No, I think that, and the funny part was, I just had a conversation with somebody about this morning, because I've been on this journey now on some level for a long time, longer than 4 years because I'm old. But on, the full force, this is all Maria is doing now. It's only been about 6 years that this has been like my full-time thing all the time. And I've learned a lot. It's funny, coming out of the corporate world, you think you know business. And then I had my side hustle for 23 years, you know what I mean? So you think you know business, and then you start a business and you're like, wait. And I always say that, when you start a business, you start it for the one or two things you do amazingly, and you find out very, very quickly all the things that you do not do amazingly. And I know for me, it was kind of like a really hard, like, smack in the face, and you're right. Mm-hmm. It's always a journey, because I felt like it's almost like going to the next level, like on a video game, right? Oh, you'd be, the big boss on level 1, and then you kind of go to the next level, and you're like, oh, this is great. I love this. And you get it. And you're like, wait, we have another big boss to beat. What the heck? So, and that's been my journey. I feel like I was like, okay, well, now I have all this figured out. And, you're right. This is how it is. This is the journey. It's not about the big boss. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey, right?
Yep. So I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft when I was in college, and there was always expansion packs, right? So you get to the big boss at the end, maybe, if you're lucky enough to get there. And then there'll be another expansion pack. So they open up like 10 or 20 more levels. So you just keep going and going. It's the truth. This has been my deepest healing journey. I do a lot of healing work with my students. I have done a lot of healing work on my own. And I wonder, if I never started my business, would I have gone on such a deep healing journey? Sometimes I wonder. And then the business itself, you learn so much about yourself. Not just like the things that you learn, like the skills that you learn. You learn so much about your mindset, your beliefs about yourself, how you carry yourself, how you feel about yourself. And it's beautiful when you really think about it, because you can peel all those layers away and really come into back to one, into yourself,
I love that you said that, because I think that an entrepreneurial journey makes you so uncomfortable, because you cannot predict where anything is going to land. It's like you're just like going forward with this plan, but honestly, we can make all the projections we want. We really don't have any idea how it's going to land, this quarter, this
Yes.
year, you know what I mean? And I think that's why we're forced, like you just said, to really go on the healing journey, because we are uncomfortable. And then when we're uncomfortable, we don't have those, safety nets to hold on to. We're forced to look at those deep layers within ourselves. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that today, because like I shared with you before we went live, we're going into season 10. So if you're listening to this live right now, this is going to be on season 10 of the podcast that's getting ready to launch out. But this whole season I've kind of dedicated just to this word that's just been going in my mind for the last few months, of just nourish, nourish, nourish. And when I first told my team, because I have my wellness business too, they thought I was talking about just like eating healthy, and I'm not, which is definitely a part of it, right? But it's bigger than that. It's about nourishing your body, yes, but also your mind and your soul. And it brings it all together. But to really be able to fully nourish, you have to get that yucky stuff out of there too. And that also means doing that deep work, like you said, and really healing. But I want to talk with you because you've been on that journey and you help other people through that journey. We hear a lot. We hear this like, about healing. We hear, about shadow work. We hear all these terms and these words that I think a lot of us don't understand. What does that actually mean?
Right. There's two sides of me right now. Like one side of me is it's become so trendy. Everybody's talking about it. But the other side of me is it's become so trendy. Like everyone's talking about it, like awesome. And I think it's beautiful because people are being called to go within. And for so long, we've been, many of us, most of us, a lot of people I come in contact with, myself, we've been so conditioned to do things based on other people and outside influences and outside sources instead of really acting on our own and acting in our own energetic frequency and getting to know that energetic frequency and getting to know ourselves, right? Like that's what it all comes down to. It's peeling back those layers, and healing can mean any of that. It can mean it can mean coming back to yourself. It can mean self-love and care. It can mean looking at the shadowy layers and looking at the limiting layers and the limiting stories. It can be looking at trauma and doing the deeper work. It could be energy healing and then really going deep into releasing this energy from the body, because everything lives as energy, even our thoughts, our beliefs, it all exists as energy and different energetic frequencies. And there's so much to it, but I think it's so important to define healing on your own terms. What does it mean for you? And any of it could be healing. Taking a bath at night instead of being on the phone, that could be healing, like anything. And I love, like even when you said it earlier about nourishment, because it's funny because that was coming up a lot for me. And I was just talking to a friend of mine. I said, this is my cozy season. Like I am getting cozy, because usually I would really, I would hate it when the winter, like the dead of winter came along. Like winter depression was the thing that always came up for me. I would always be drinking during the winter to kind of cope with those feelings. And now that I'm, in my, after my healing journey, I really came back to this space where like I can embrace these darker winter, colder months. And I really want to lean into coziness and nurture and nourishment. I love it. Yep.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and I think for a lot of us, we have not, especially if we have not healed, we're afraid to kind of be still. I know I was.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
As long as I stayed busy, I didn't have to think about all my insecurities. I didn't have to think about all the junk. I didn't have to think about it because I was just too busy to think about it.
Yeah.
And so the worst thing for me was being still, was being not busy, was being, just with myself, by myself. And, it's funny now because now I absolutely adore being by myself. I'll get my blanket, I'll get a warm drink. I am good. I'm good. But that took a while. And it's funny because, it didn't seem to me like that was an issue. I just thought that was part of my personality, who I was or whatever, but it wasn't that. It wasn't my personality. Actually, it was a far, far, far from my true personality. That was my unhealed version, my unhealed mask. And I think a lot of us kind of end up getting stuck there. And we're not really sure that it's an issue until we're forced to kind of face that. And, I agree with you. I've kind of on one end, hear all the, the trendiness of it. But there's a reason things become trends a lot of times. And I think it is because, and I'm sure you felt this too, that, the last few years, there's been this just, I guess, uprising of people realizing that there's more to life than reaching this level and doing this and doing that and checking this box and whatever, and it's funny because this is the first year that I don't have these huge goals. I don't have, like, I thought about it at the end of the year, and there's nothing really that I really have in my mind. And I thought, you know what, that's for a reason, because the word that's coming out of my mind is nourish. Whenever you're nourished and you're nourishing yourself, you don't have these huge, large goals. You're not full force. I think this is a moment that the universe is telling me, hey, you just need to chill for a minute. You can have a little small goals. You can figure out what you're doing today, next week. But to have these big, large, this is my year goal, this is my quarter, I don't have them right now, which is strange for me because I always do.
Everything you just said, it's so hard for me to not interrupt too.
No, you're good. Yes, no, I'm the same way.
Because it's like, I just agree with this. I resonate with this so deeply. So number one, I feel like the not having of goals is kind of the goal is just to be.
Yes.
Let's just be. Let's just let things unravel. Let's just be okay and nourished and safe and happy, just being. And everything that you said just hit every point like on the head for me. Like, I also realized, like, I never knew it was an issue that I couldn't be with myself. I couldn't be still. I was very scared and afraid to be alone. I was an addict for over a decade. I was doing drugs and alcohol because I didn't want to be still. I didn't want to be with myself. I didn't want to look at the gunk and the muck and whatever. And once my healing journey started to unravel, I realized a lot of it had to do with safety in the body. And safety in the body has everything to do with just being still, feeling safe in your body, feeling safe with yourself. It was mind-blowing to me too when I realized it, because I always thought, oh no, it's this, or it's the trauma blocks, or it's the trauma wounds, or it's this incident, or it's that memory. I think it really mostly came down to the fact that I just couldn't be still, and I couldn't just be. And with you and not having these big goals, it's like such a beautiful lesson, right? Like, that's the lesson.
It's awesome. That's a huge thing for me. That's a big thing for me to be like, oh, not only to not have them, but to be okay with it. And to me, that's almost like, okay, well, I've reached, I guess, that next level, right? I'm on this next level now. I'm like, okay, but it's interesting that I feel like there's so many people that are feeling that same thing, and they're not sure what these feelings mean. they're feeling pulled to just slow down, to do more. I've noticed so many people on my Facebook feed that they're starting to bake bread. So out in my area that I live, I'm definitely kind of a little bit of the weirdo. I'm the one that, like, really believes in like the rife machine and the frequencies, and I do like little herbs, and then, I have the bees, and I bake the bread, and I do all the things, right? But then I have the business side of myself too. Right. I'm just this eclectic weirdo, and I am who I am. But it's funny that I've seen so many people on my feed that I would have never pictured liking these things. They're starting to try them. They're starting to do them. And I'm here for it, because we're supposed to try all these experiences. We're supposed to create. And I think that is nurturing, right? That's nurturing ourselves. And yes, creating the food inside the home, baking the sourdough bread is going to be way better for you than anything you're going to buy at a store. So there's so many layers to that just nurturing, that I think so many people are wanting it and they're not sure where to start. And you're kind of an expert in this area, so I do want to talk to you on this. Like, what would be kind of just this like guide if somebody is like, okay, you know what? Yes, I want to nourish my body. I want to nourish my mind. I want to nourish my soul. I want to figure out, how do I start creating the sense of balance in my life? And I think a lot of people think balance is out here. Like, you balance, all these things out here. Mm-hmm. That will never work. Balance is in here. Right? Yep. So where does it start?
Where does it start? It starts with a journal and a pen. That's where it starts, right? Like, I'm a huge proponent of journaling. Journaling in and of itself is just it's a deep self-exploration, and it really starts with you. It starts with thinking about these things. Take out a journal, put your pen to your paper, and ask yourself, what would a nourished life look like? right?
Yeah.
What would a more cozy life look like? What would a life where I just feel peaceful, just being, what does that look like? Does that mean I go to yoga? Does that mean I meditate? Does that mean I cook more at home? Does that mean I take time out to read at night? Or does that mean that, I just take time out to be with myself? Or like you said, like wrap up in your blanket. Like I bought myself a blanket a few months ago, like with this in mind, because I make like this little cozy space in my room, and I get my blanket and a cup of tea, and like I do it though intentionally. And that's the point. We do it with intention, because so often we live on autopilot. We're just reacting to the world around us, especially in the age of social media. We take out our phones, we react to what we see, we react to notifications. As entrepreneurs, we react if we don't see evidence that the business is going well, or that people are enrolling in our programs, or that people bought our products or services. That's a reaction. Oh no, must mean something about me. And then it just spirals from there. So instead, when we can bring it back and be more intentional about these things, intentionally create your little cozy routine, intentionally wake up in the morning. This is a big one for me. Like going back to the phone, I would pick up my phone from the moment I woke up. I would not see evidence that I was successful. And then I would create that story all day. I would let it dictate my whole life that day. Instead, I had to knock the phone out completely. Like I had to put it across the room for a little bit so I really wouldn't touch it. And I would wake up and I would visualize for a few minutes, or I would write in my journal, or I would just speak affirmations out loud or in the mirror. Like I did something that would focus my energy and bring it back to me, because at the end of the day, this is what I teach. We are the masters of our own reality. We create our own reality. So if we could do that from the moment we wake up and like command our energy and point it in the direction we want it to go, that will work wonders for the rest of the day. But it really just has to do with being intentional, like intentionally setting aside that time for yourself and intentionally figuring out what these things mean to you. Because what it means to me might not be what it means to you. What it means to that person might not be what it means to me. And that's, I think, the big part of it too, right? Like really figuring it out on our own for ourselves.
I mean, I think that's where the magic happens, because there's nothing wrong with like looking and seeing what other people are doing and being like, you know what, I wonder if I would like that. I wonder if I would like baking sourdough, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's whenever we decide we're going to try to do that. And, maybe it's not creating the feeling we thought it was going to, but we keep doing it because, well, that's what happy people do, right? That's what successful people do. And I think, all of us probably have fallen into that trap. I know, whatever I got out of the corporate world, I got out of it for a lot of reasons, but there was lots of it I didn't like, right? There's lots of it I didn't like. But the hilarious part, looking back now, when I started my own business, I recreated that same dynamic. The whole thing that I didn't want to do, I recreated because I didn't know any other way of doing it. And then, surprise, surprise, I get all these contracts and I'm like flying in here and going here and doing all these bits. And I'm like, what the heck? I was miserable. So, from the outside world, I had made it. I was doing great. But in reality, I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was miserable. Like my marriage was on the rocks. My family life was in flames. My mental stability was barely there. Like it, but from the outside, I was successful at that.
Right.
And I think that is the reality for a lot of people. We try to end up judging what success looks like to us from what it looks like to other people, what happiness looks like to us because of how it looks to other people. And you're 100% right. You have to figure out what does that look like for you. And you're going to try things and be like, yeah, this is not it. And that's okay, right? We're always growing and learning. Just because we're adults at this point does not mean we're not still growing and learning.
Yeah. And, a big thing, like for me, okay, when I'm having an allergy attack, by the way, that's why I keep.
Oh, you're good.
A big thing for me when I was a few years out of college, and I more than a few years, because then I went and I got my paralegal certificate. I wanted to be a lifelong student. I was like, I did not know what I wanted to do. And I decided I need a career. I need a career because that's what's going to make me happy. I want to find
what grown-up people do, right?
Right. I want to find my purpose, and purpose means career, and career means success if it's a white collar career. If I wear business suits, right? Like I had this whole idea in my mind. and I manifested a career. I actually worked with a manifestation coach. Like my whole basis of my business is manifestation. That was what I started with. That's what everything kind of ties into. And I manifested a career perfectly, white collar career. It was in finance. I didn't know it was going to be in finance. It hit all the marks on everything I wanted. Like I wanted to help people. I wanted to wear suits. I wanted to make my own hours because as an advisor, I had my own hours. And I'm like, oh, I manifested it. I found out really quickly that was not my definition of success. Very quickly, I figured that out. So that white collar career was not my definition of success. And I had to rip that all down. And it took a while. Like we got to give ourselves grace and compassion while we do these things, because it could be difficult. It can take a while. Sometimes it may not take a while, but if it does, that's okay too. We're literally tearing down all of these ideas and thoughts and belief systems that we've had in place pretty much our whole life. Like that wasn't my idea of success, but it was probably society's idea of success, right? So it's so important to be able to define these things on our own terms. And also what you were saying, how we do one thing is how we do everything, unless we do something to change. And that's why, like what you were saying, I decided to leave I decided to leave corporate, and the same thing was happening. This is why it's also so important to create these strong foundations for ourselves. And those foundations are really built on nourishment and self-care and self-love and just being like grounded in ourselves and happy in ourselves and being able to define these things for ourselves. That's what that foundation really is going to look like.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of us don't really know. I know if you would have asked me,
and that's okay too.
Yeah, I would have been like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I like that you say you got to give yourself grace and compassion, because it's true. I said to my youngest just turned 7 back in December, and she got upset with herself the other day, and I was like, it's okay. I was like, you've never been 7 before. But here's the thing. I've never been my age before. You've never been your age before. This is the first time that we've ever been this age. This is the first time. And so, yes, on one level, you can look and say, well, you're an adult now. Okay, well, this is a brand new experience. This is a brand new mindset. This is a brand new desire that I have right now. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, this is the first year ever I don't have these huge, large goals, these aspirations. I'm going to hit it hard because I don't want that. And I'm not going to lie. There was a couple times I'm like, should I want that? Is this okay? But I'm like, you know what? This just not, it doesn't feel right. Like I just want to just be right now. I don't know what that looks like. It may be terrible. I don't know. But right now, it's what feels good to me. It's what feels right to me. And I think that's, for me, that's what balance is, right? It's feeling balance in this moment. It's feeling balance today. Tomorrow, I might not feel balanced with it, right? I might need to adjust it a little bit, because the idea of balance is not this linear thing. I think we get to this destination of balance, right? Well, now I'm balanced, but it doesn't work like that.
I just got to hide my mail thing. It always pops up whenever I'm doing a video, and then you hear ding. So as you're saying that, that's your higher self guiding you right there. Like our higher selves live in deep inner knowing. We're going to be okay. Our higher self is always guiding us to more nourishment, right? More nourishment, more happiness, more fulfillment, always guiding us to our purpose. We can have many different purposes. We can have different purposes across our lifetime. We can have a purpose for one thing and a purpose for something else. But that purpose just means being fulfilled and within ourselves, right? So, this whole like, we always have to go hard. We have to set the goals and we have to do this. Well, maybe let's just ride it out, right? Let's just like release all of that. Let's just ride it out and see what happens. Focus on me, show up for me, see what happens, like that's really living in higher self energy. Just letting things unfold because you're trusting they're going to unfold for your highest good, right? It's a really fun place to be, and it could be scary because we can't control it sometimes, and we want to control, like even like I always go back to, like when I say control, I always go back to COVID, and I remember feeling like this whole entire loss of control, like insane loss of control. And that's when I became a serious like alcoholic. I started drinking a lot because I couldn't control. That was something I had to break down a lot over the last few years. We want to control things so much. But what if we could just let things go? What if we could just feel that we are always supported? What if, we can set our intentions, we can set our goals, we know where we're moving towards, but we don't have to push, we don't have to force, we could just let things unfold. Like, what isn't that such a different place than we are usually, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's when I think that's the reason a lot of us live in just the state of anxiety all the time. And I know I did. I mean, I got to
Oh
the
yeah,
point I had just crippling anxiety
me too.
because
Yep.
I had all these goals, I had all these things going on, and I have live also a very busy life. You've probably seen my horde of children at the end of the.
I
So I
love
have,
it.
yeah. So there's a lot of potential things that
Yeah.
go on in my life at all times, right? It's
Yep.
just if that's part of a full and busy life, which is not all bad, but it's all busy, right?
Yep.
And so it's hard to, like you said, control everything else going on in my life, that I was like driving myself crazy trying to meet these like huge goals and these huge demands that, let's be honest, most of the time I set for myself,
Yep.
because nobody was setting them for me, because I was my own boss at that point. I was doing it to myself, and then I would stress myself out. And, I don't even know how we end up here, but I know it's not uncommon talking to all the entrepreneurs that I talk to, especially the women, because I do talk to more female entrepreneurs. Like, we have this drive, and drive itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think sometimes we're so afraid to just put it in park for a minute because of that unknown, like what's going to happen. But on
Yeah.
the other end of that, if you keep driving, you keep driving without stopping, without parking, without filling up for gas, without
Yep.
whatever, right? I
Yeah.
can tell you what's going to happen.
What an analogy.
Exactly.
Oh, I got the chills when you said that too. It's like you're absolutely right. And especially as female entrepreneurs, we're so hard on ourselves. Like we are so very hard on ourselves. We want to make sure everything goes right. We put the backs of we put our family on our backs. We put everything on our backs. It's like we almost come into this position where we feel like everything has to be, we have to do everything, we have to make everything has to succeed, everything has to do beautifully and amazingly, and it's all on us. And it comes back to these patterns that as it might be different childhood patterns, like the little the girl who always had to be the good little girl, right? We always had to do something good, we always had to be good. Or perhaps even throughout our lives, maybe we had different people in our lives, different relationships where we always felt like we were the ones that had to pull through. We were the ones that had to do everything. I see it a lot with women. I see it with myself, like pretty much everything, everybody that I have ever mentored, any of my students and my clients, they are always like mirror images of me in some way, and especially with female entrepreneurs, it's like we put the weight of the world on our shoulders. And if we could just pull back a little bit and relax a little bit, and to know that if you're doing something that you love, you are living in your purpose, you are following your highest self, because your highest self is always guiding you to your purpose. Like that is what your higher self does. And if we could just step back and be in that knowing, like, okay, I'm in it. If it's something that I love, it's something that brings me joy, I'm in it. And I know it's going to work out. And it's in those moments of like those anxiety and the pushing too hard and the forcing and pushing, and I said pushing already, and shoving, it's like that in those moments, we kind of lose that connection with our higher self. We lose that connection with that empowered version of ourselves, like the version of ourselves that we really want to be, that we deserve to be. And it's like that disconnection. So, but it's also a process, right? We can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, we're not going to be anxious, we're not going to live in control mode. Like, it takes time, it really takes time. And that's why we do have to be gentle with ourselves. We really do.
Well, and catch ourselves. I know for me, it was catching myself in the moment where I'd start to feel that very familiar feeling, and I always felt it in my throat, and I felt like my throat was getting,
Ooh.
and I'd have to stop and say, okay, what is making me feel like this? I'd have to ask myself that question. And, it takes time, like you said, and you have to be able to catch it. You have to be able to acknowledge it. You have to be able to remove yourself from whatever that situation is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even like always an external situation. It could be inside of our
Yep.
minds.
Oh yeah.
And, it's being able to start identifying it. That's the first step, or was for me, is identifying that, okay, well, first of all, I'm feeling like this. I don't want to feel like this. Why am I feeling like this? And sometimes it was for a real reason. There was a lot of crap going on. And sometimes it was like all these like scenarios of the what ifs that I was creating for myself that gave my body that old familiar feeling, right?
What if
I can what if myself to death sometimes. And even now I'll catch myself wanting to like think about that. I'm like, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter, because you can't predict everything. I always tell people, be prepared, right? I always have extra water. I always have extra food. I always have, but I'm not, I didn't buy a tank and I didn't bury myself underground, right? I mean, to me,
maybe a generator.
That's not living. You know what I mean? That, there's a balance, right? There's a balance between preparation and even in the business world, you can prepare to a certain level. There's preparation, and then there's driving yourself crazy trying to, figure out the outcome. And it's finding, again, that balance, right? It's what is that balance for you, for where you typically normally go. I go to like anxiety land like pretty darn quickly, and I know that. So I have to like give myself rules for me on that. Like, when you start feeling like that, you need to step away. You need to turn the computer off. You need to step away, And I think that, again, is part of this whole journey. It's just balancing, your mind, balancing your body, and really connecting with who you truly are. And you mentioned a minute ago about purpose. I do want to talk a lot about, that's another word that you start around. I'm going to find my purpose. I'm going to find my purpose. And again, I think people have it in their mind that it's this destination. It's this like, it's like the clouds are going to part, the rainbow's going to come. There it is. That's my purpose. I've arrived, and it's not like that, right? I think we figure out what our purpose is today, our purpose is this week, our purpose is, you know what I mean? And I think, again, it usually kind of is on a specific path for who you are. But I found that my purpose it changes a tiny bit. It's still in the same world. But it tends to kind of ebb and flow. And I've had to, again, be comfortable with kind of letting that go. Has that been your experience with yourself, your experience with your clients?
It's funny. Like I always thought the same thing. Like we have arrived, right? We're here. We're never gonna arrive. Like, I hate to break it to anybody. We are never gonna arrive. We are always growing. We're always healing. We're always transforming. Yes, things become easier, right? But maybe not everything. There's going to be like new demons to face at every new level. That's what I always say. New things come up, new situations. Your mindset perhaps will become stronger, or what I usually say is you just have you're better equipped to deal with these things. Like going back to what you were saying earlier, how you had to isolate the feeling and you isolated it in your throat, which I think is very interesting because that's the center of our communication. But that's a beautiful way of isolating things. Like even if you're in anxiety mode, where do you feel it in the body? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your foot, your pinky toe, wherever it is? Kind of like think about it. And what I like to do is isolate that feeling, sit with it. We got to feel it to heal it. We hear this all the time, and it's true. Feel it, feel through it. And then I send it love. Like I just kind of picture love being sent to that area. When we can sit with these things and kind of like deconstruct them in the moment, they will be released a lot faster. You will be able to overcome them a lot better. And that's how we become more well-equipped. But going back to purpose, we're never done. We are never done. And that's why it's also okay. It's okay to change your niche, right? A lot of people try to focus on one thing. If something is not bringing you joy anymore, you have every right in the world to do something different or to be led to somewhere different. You have every right in the world to leave your job, even if you're too old to start a business, right? We're never too old to do anything. Like we always put these what's the word? We always put these requirements on things. That's not the word I was looking for. We always put like these requirements on things. Like we're too old to do this, or it's too late to do this, or we missed our moment, or we can't switch this up. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. Like you're really allowed to this is how you transform. This is how you come back to yourself, is learning to make those decisions for yourself, for your joy, for your happiness. And purpose really means being fulfilled, waking up every morning, loving what you do, loving being, right? Your purpose could be being a mother and having a family. Your purpose, and that's another thing, right? Like I always said to myself, like purpose didn't necessarily mean job or work. Right now, I feel like I'm flowing in my purpose because I love my business more than anything. Like I love it, but I also dreamed about this for years, years and years and years. I would literally write down exactly like I wake up in the morning feeling excited. I am so excited to work with people, or I'm so excited to be helping the world, or like whatever I wrote down. And it's so funny because it's all coming true. It's all come true, and it's all coming true. You know, even like things I wrote 6 months ago, I'm seeing them now. It's amazing. But that's what purpose really means, is feeling fulfilled and learning how to navigate your journey on your own instead of being so hard on ourselves, or the dreaded I should be there by now. That one comes up a lot. A lot, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, that is the what's playing in their mind all the time,
Yep.
right? That's that programming.
That was me.
When you were speaking, I was sitting there thinking that, you know, a lot of us, all of us actually have program. We don't even realize we have programming.
Yep.
So, you know, we've been told things from the time we were a kid. We learned things. We picked up things at school, right? We've been kind of programmed with these outside influences because we wasn't really ready to know all these things ourselves yet. So then we get older, we start realizing that, you know, we have all these other thoughts that don't kind of align with that, but then we kind of push them to the back, right? Because that's not what we're supposed to do or supposed to think. And then, you know, finally, whatever point we get to the point where we feel usually so imbalanced, right? Or, you know, some people like me, I mean, I crash and burn before I realized that I'm that stubborn. But, you know, it ends up being that, you know, you have this like moment where it's like, okay, something's not right. I don't feel right. I don't want this. I don't like this. I'm tired of having to put on this mask of perfection and show up every day when I'm freaking miserable. Who decided that we have to all show up like everything's hunky dory when everything's a flaming dumpster fire? Why can't we say that everything is a flaming dumpster fire today? Because everybody has those days, those weeks, those months. And I love what you said earlier. You said that there's always going to be the things that happen, because that is so true. And I think that's a big awakening for people once they've gone through their first healing journey. And I'm saying some people because it was me also, but you go through your first healing journey. You've figured this out. You have cracked the code. You know now. You've made all these changes. You've done all this stuff, and you are ready for your just like glorious life, right? Walking on the clouds of awesomeness because you know all these things. And then the first time that some other messiness, crappy stuff happens, you're like, wait, but I'm healed. You know? And that, to me, that was the first, I was like, wait, I'm still going to have to go through crap, you know, but you're right. You have better tools.
It's funny. Key. I had a moment like that a week ago. I hope I don't look like I'm like, I can't breathe right now on the floor. I'm like, I'm having such a bad allergy attack. It's been like this for a few days. I think it might be a cold instead of allergies. Riding the wave. So about a week ago, I said that to myself. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? I shouldn't be feeling like this. I did all the work, you know, because I was having like a really big release. The other thing is these big dumpster fire moments, they often, I mean, there's two ways. They come up because like that is life, right? Like we're humans. We're going to deal with this stuff. Shit. Can I say shit?
You can say shit.
And then the other side of it is they happen when we choose to follow our joy, when we choose to follow our purpose, when we choose ourselves, when we choose to transform. It seems like the world can come crashing down on us sometimes. And that's really, it's like the Black Mirror is facing you. Everything that has to come out of you, all of those, that programming, right? All of those things that have to be rewritten in order for you to get to where you want to go, you're going to be faced with it. So that's, you know, a lot of times we call it the dark night of the soul, and it'll come up when we really choose ourselves. And that's the bottom line. You know, all of this work, the self-development work, the spiritual growth work, it's personal development, you know, at its core. It's just choosing you. That's all it is. And when we choose ourselves, and also the other side of that too is we can't go to our next level doing the same thing that we're doing at this level.
Yes.
We can't go to our next level with the same set of beliefs or the same set of the same mindset, the same programming. we're going to have to shift it. We're going to have to change some things around. Sometimes we don't know what it is to change. So it's just going to be, it's going to be thrown into your face sometimes. Like, oh God, you know, and it does. It happens at every level. There's no such thing as fully healed. There's no such thing, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that now.
Yeah, you're uncovering more and more and more at each level. And it's, I think that you just learn how to ride the wave better. Another thing that comes up with me still, I'll do like deep healing work. Like I do a lot of deep energetic release work. And then maybe a day or 2 or 3 after that, I will just feel so like I'm dragging. I don't, like, really low vibration. I don't feel good. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it didn't work. I guess it didn't work. But like, that's the energy kind of coming out of you. And that's like your body resetting and everything kind of working. That is the work. So I have to remind myself of that. Like, this is just the clearing. And then after 3 days or so, I'll feel amazing. Like I just shed 100 pounds. But when I'm in it, you know, it's funny how often it really does come up. Like I have to keep reminding myself of these things. For sure.
I think that's the key, is to keep reminding you. I know I'm going to start wrapping this up, but before we, you know, kind of start wrapping up, there's 2 things that I would like for people that are listening, that's like, okay, this, I want to really start to find balance in my life. I want to figure out my own, you know, nourishment. I want to figure out my own sense of harmony. And where would you recommend they start? And then also for people that want to figure out, you know, a little bit more about what you do, you can kind of share a little bit about that, and then where people can find you, because, you know, it's not something, like you mentioned a couple of times that I think I did too, that it's not overnight, right? This is not something that you do today. You check the box, you're like, good, I am good.
Right.
That was great. But
and I'm done. Checking it off.
I wish, but no, it's not, you know, but it's not impossible either. And the journey's not all bad. There's beauty in so much of it.
Yes. You know, it's funny too. It's like, sometimes I feel like I'll talk about the healing work and I'll talk about the journey, and it sounds like it's like this horrible thing. Like, I don't want to do that. It's not all bad. And the point is that when you do it, you do feel so much more whole, and you feel like you're flowing, and you feel aligned. You feel happy with yourself. That's what it comes down to, you know, loving yourself, because we're stuck with ourselves, right? Like we should try to love ourselves.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, but like, to start, I started with books. Now we have everything on social media. I think it's really cool to kind of explore these things, explore different modalities, explore different ways you can create like a routine for yourself. I always said, like, I was never like a high performance habits type person, but I do teach habits and routines. Like when we want to evolve into or transform into a new level, it's a beautiful place to start with a new habit, a new routine. What if you have a routine where you read, right? Like at the end of the day, you read a book, or at the end of the day, you write a gratitude list or self-gratitude. You know, a lot of times we write gratitude for things outside of us. What about gratitude for yourself? What are you happy with for today? You know, like really just kind of taking time out for you. And even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just a few minutes, that's another thing. A lot of people say, oh, I don't have time. You don't need an hour. You really don't. Because once you do these things consistently, even if you do it for 1 minute, it starts to expand more and more, and you're going to notice things start to shift and change, for sure.
100%. And I love that you said 5 minutes, because that was my goal with myself. Because again, busy life, I had to say, you know what, 5 minutes. I'm going to get up. And sometimes the kids would be up, but they knew the rule. I go in there, I do yoga, and for 5, you can leave me alone for 5 minutes. You will be fine, I promise. You know, so no matter what your life looks like, you can find 5 minutes, or like you said, even 1 minute. I love that. For people that are wanting to kind of follow you and keep up with some of the things you're doing, where's the best place for them to be able to find you?
On Instagram. Definitely on Instagram. My handle is at amanda.j.may. I'm kind of everywhere, but like my main hub is Instagram.
And if you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll make sure that the link to be able to find all her Instagram account and all the things that she talks about on there. I love your Instagram. I'm terrible on Instagram. We always have our favorite platforms.
Yep.
Yes. And then I have some of them like, oh yeah, I have that too. I probably should put something up there. But I love getting on there to look at other people's.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's one of my favorite to go on to look at other people's stuff. Yep. But then I forget that I also should be posting things.
That's a good point right there too. Go and look at other people's stuff on social media.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a place to start, use
Inspiration.
inspiration. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And try it, you know, and I think that's
Yeah.
the big thing too. Like, you know, try it on. Like you would go and
Yeah.
try on clothes, right? Look at like,
Yeah.
that's a cute outfit. I'm sure you've done that, right? That's such a cute outfit.
Yeah.
And you can put it on and it looks like, okay,
Not
this
at all.
is
Not for
good on me.
me.
It's not my thing. And that's okay, right? It doesn't mean it's not cute. You know,
Right.
for her, just not for you. You need
It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you just because
Exactly.
it's just not for you. Exactly.
Not for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I've even seen stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cute. It's not, I wouldn't wear it because it's not my style. That's super,
Right.
you know, again,
Exactly.
that is the
But
whole.
you get inspired, and then it awakens something in yourself to be like, well, maybe it's not for me, but I want something that is for me. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. It gives you ideas. It gives you inspiration.
Exactly.
You can try something and you may try it and you could completely decide that you hate it. I've tried plenty of things. I'm like, you know what? This is not for me. The whole wine and paint night thing, that is not for
I
me.
can't paint. I am
not
an artiste. There's nothing. I'm just not artistic. So
I do okay if I got a long time, but that was my problem. That I
Yeah.
figured that out, right? Lots of people love it. Lots of my friends love it. It's like a big thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not downing it. I'm just saying for me, it was like, okay. And for the next time, like, wait. I am still working on this step. Like it was anxiety inducing for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be told now the next step. No. I'm
Nope.
still shooting. Leave me alone. So
That's a good rule. If it's anxiety inducing,
yeah.
find something else.
Absolutely. So no, I love this conversation. I am going to go and wrap it up because I'm sure my team's going to be like, girl, we told you to stay at a certain level. But make sure that you check out Amanda May's Instagram channel. She's got some really great stuff on there. And if you're uncertain where to start with your own journey on finding your own, that's the key word there, your own sense of balance, go ahead and don't be afraid to try things. Reach out and, you know, talk to people who, you know, are maybe doing some things that you want to try. Ask them where to start, you know. And I love that you were on here today. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. Such a good conversation. We could talk forever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel like we could go for a whole nother, 46 minutes, but I am going to wrap it up. If you're listening on the podcast platform, if you're not already a subscriber, just hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And until next time.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights,